How long until a haunted house pays for itself? Let us actually build one and find out. A serious attraction runs about $25 to $30 a square foot. To build, sets, animatronics, lighting, sound, the works. So a 12,000 square foot haunt costs you somewhere around $330,000 before a single guest walks in. You charge each of them about $30 to be scared out of their minds, and a good haunt can pull 20,000 people in a season. That is $600,000 coming in. Sounds like you clear the entire build in 1 year. Easy money. It is not that simple. And the reason is sitting right there on the calendar. This attraction is open about 25 nights a year, and every one of them is crammed into October. Miss a weekend to rain, and that money is gone. Not until next quarter. Until next year. Let us open the whole ledger, because owning a haunted house is one of the strangest businesses you will ever meet. The buy-in. Start with what you are actually building, because you are not buying a business, you are manufacturing one every single year. A haunted house is a large, dark, purpose-built experience. You need a big space, and then you fill it with sets, corridors, animatronic monsters, lighting rigs, fog machines, sound systems, and costumes. At roughly $25 to $30 a square foot, a mid-sized haunt runs into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And here is the strange part. A good chunk of that work has to be redone every year, because the same maze that terrified people last October will bore them this one. Then the real estate, and this is where clever operators split into two camps. Some sign a permanent home and build a brand people return to. Others run what the trade calls a transient model, a short-term lease in a vacant strip mall or an empty big-box store, building the whole thing from scratch each fall and tearing it down after Halloween. Cheap rent, but no loyal following. Location itself is a constraint. A haunt needs a large, cheap, forgiving space. So expensive cities are almost locked out. Washington, D.C. has 0 commercial haunted houses, while states like Ohio, Kentucky, and Missouri pack in roughly 3 times as many per person as California. So the tiers look like this. The volunteer charity haunt in a church basement, the mid-sized pro haunt in a leased warehouse, and the mega destination that runs a whole season. Whatever you build, hold this thought. You just spent a fortune on a product with the shortest selling season in all of business. What you inherit. You inherit the tyranny of the calendar, and it rules everything. Here is the brutal shape of it. You get about 25 nights a year to earn all of your money, and every one of them lands in a few weeks of October. The rent, the insurance, the storage, and the year-round build crew do not care. They are due in January and April and July, months when not one paying customer will ever walk through your door. Then you inherit the weather. A haunted house lives and dies on a handful of October weekends, and a rained-out Saturday is not a bad day. It is revenue you will never get back, because there is no next weekend to make it up. There is only next year. You inherit strange competition too. You are not just fighting other haunts. You are fighting everything people could do with an autumn evening. When the local baseball team makes a deep playoff run, haunts empty out as customers head to the games instead, and you inherit a financing nightmare. Banks hate lending against a business that earns its whole year in 6 weeks, so most owners cannot get a normal loan. They survive on savings, on investors, or on a line of credit sized to the gap. One well-known haunt has needed as much as $500,000 in credit just to make payroll before the money comes in. The revenue layers. A haunted house that survives has several income streams, and the plane ticket is only the start. Layer 1. General admission. Each guest pays to walk through, often $25 to $35, sold in timed slots, so the line keeps moving. This is the base, and by itself it is a race against 25 nights. Layer 2, and this is pure margin. Skip the line. People will pay a hefty premium to avoid a 2-hour wait in the cold, and a fast pass costs you almost nothing to sell. On a busy night, the upgrades can rival the tickets. Layer 3. More attractions on one site. A second haunt, a corn maze, a hayride, an escape room. Each one lifts how much every visitor spends before they leave, and turns a 20-minute stop into a whole evening out. Layer 4. Food and drink. Food trucks, hot cider, a bar. Hungry, cold people in a long line are a captive market, and the margins on concessions are excellent. Layer 5. The off-season. The smartest owners reuse the site for Christmas light walks, Valentine events, and private bookings, squeezing revenue out of a building that would otherwise sit empty 11 months of the year. Stack it together, and the truth appears. The scare gets them in the gate. Everything you sell around it is what actually pays. Listen to that again. Here is the part worth stopping on. A haunted house earns almost all of its money in about 25 nights. Think about that. Roughly 6 weekends of October have to pay for 12 months of rent, insurance, storage, and a build that started the previous winter. Every other week of the year is pure expense. Read that again. There is no slow season to grind through and recover in. There is one season, and it is tiny. A single rained-out Saturday in the middle of October is not a rough patch you bounce back from next month. It is a hole in the year that never gets filled. Listen to that again. You are not really running an attraction. You are manufacturing 1 month of fear a year, betting a fortune on about 6 weekends, and praying the sky stays clear. That is exactly why 60% of haunted houses do not survive past their 3rd year, and exactly why the ones that do stopped being a 20-minute scare and became a place people spend an entire night. The ledger. Turn the page to what leaves the account, and notice how much of it never stops. That build comes first, and it is brutal, because it is never really finished. Sets, animatronics, and effects cost a fortune up front, and then a big share has to be refreshed every year to keep the repeat crowd coming back. Then the real estate, rent or mortgage on a large space, paid all 12 months whether you are open or not. Then labor, in 2 waves. A year-round crew of designers and builders who construct the thing, and then a small army of scare actors hired for the few weeks you are actually open. Then insurance, which is heavy, because sending people running and screaming through a dark building is exactly the kind of thing that generates lawsuits. Then a September advertising blitz. Radio, social, and search, at a couple of dollars per visitor you hope to attract. And notice the shape of it. Nearly every cost is fixed and spread across the whole year, while the revenue arrives in a single 6-week burst. That mismatch, huge steady costs against one tiny window of income, is the entire financial danger of this business. The trap. Here is the trap, and it catches nearly every first-time owner. You picture the crowd, 20,000 people, $30 a head, a line down the block on a crisp October night. It looks like a money-printing machine that runs itself for a few weeks. So you sink your savings into the scariest build you can afford and wait for Halloween. That is the first half of the trap. What you did not price in is the year of unpaid work, the rent in the dead months, the insurance, and above all, the weather. You bet everything on a handful of weekends, with no bank willing to catch you if they go wrong, and no next quarter to recover in. Now the second half. Even if your first October is a hit, you cannot coast. The same crowd will not pay to see the same maze twice, so you must pour money back into new scares every single year, or your best customers, the repeat visitors, just stop coming. The build cost never really ends. Put it together. You are carrying a full year of fixed costs on 6 weekends of income. You cannot borrow against it the normal way, and you have to rebuild your product from scratch every year just to stay in place. That is the trap that closes on romantic haunters again and again. The history digression. To understand this business, look at how it grew up. For decades, haunted houses were amateur affairs. Church youth groups and service clubs like the JCs would throw one together as a fundraiser. A few sheets and a strobe light in a borrowed basement for a couple of weekends. Fun, but nobody's living. Then a wave of operators decided to treat fear as a craft. Take Billy Messina, who co-founded an attraction called Netherworld just outside Atlanta and ran it for more than 20 years. Netherworld became known for Hollywood-grade monsters, elaborate sets, and detailed storylines, and it was once rated the second scariest attraction in the entire country. Owners like him turned a church basement gag into a professional show with real production values. Read what that built. That professional wave created a real industry. around 2,100 for-profit haunts across the country, roughly double the number back in the 1990s, drawing tens of millions of visitors and adding up to a $500 million business every October. As Messina himself put it, this thing can be intoxicating for people, but it is not like opening a lemonade stand. The market exists because a handful of people proved you could build a serious business out of 1 month of fear. So watch how a haunted house dies, because it usually follows the same script. Someone falls in love with the idea, sinks their savings into a big elaborate build, and signs a lease. Their plan is simple: pack the place every night in October and clear the cost in 1 season. Then the calendar and the sky do their work. A couple of the precious October weekends get rained out, and a chunk of the only income window is just gone. But the rent, the insurance, and the storage keep coming all year. With no bank loan available, the owner leans on a line of credit to cover payroll, and the debt starts to build. Now the second year arrives, and the money to refresh the scares is not there. So the maze is mostly the same as last year. The repeat customers notice, and they do not come back. Attendance slips, the credit line stretches tighter, and there is no cushion anywhere, because the whole business only breathes for 6 weeks. One more soft October, one more rainy weekend, and the doors do not open a third time. This is why most of them are gone by year 3. The rain did not just cost a weekend, it cost the whole business. So who survives? And how? The haunts that last did a few specific things right. 1. They became a destination, not a hallway. Instead of a single 20-minute walkthrough, they run several attractions, plus food trucks, a bar, maybe axe throwing or an escape room. So a visit becomes a whole evening, and every guest spends far more. 2. They stretched the calendar. They reuse the same building and sets for Christmas light events, Valentine nights, and private parties. So the place earns in months that used to be pure cost. 3. They planned for the weather and the banks. They kept a real cash reserve or a right-sized line of credit, priced in a rainout or two, and never bet the whole business on a perfect October. 4. They reinvested in fear. They put real money back into fresh scares every year, because they understood that the repeat crowd is the whole game, and a stale haunt is a dead haunt. None of that is about one great Halloween. It is about turning a 6-week gamble into a year-round entertainment business. 4. So does owning a haunted house work. Let us run it, and treat this as a model, not a real haunt. You build a strong attraction, you keep a cash cushion, and you turn the site into a destination from day 1. In a good year, October delivers clear, cold weekends. Your lines are packed, your fast passes and food and second attractions lift every ticket, and your Christmas and Valentine events keep the lights on through winter. The season more than covers the year, and the crowd leaves already planning next Halloween. That is the good year. Now the other side. You built a single 20-minute haunt, all your money in the walls, no reserve, on a lease you pay all year. 2 October weekends wash out in the rain. The credit line is maxed just covering payroll. There is nothing left to refresh the scares, and next year the repeat crowd stays home. A business that looked unstoppable on one packed Saturday is dark and insolvent by its 3rd autumn. Here is the real verdict. A haunted house is 2 bets at once. One is a bet that people keep paying to be terrified every October, which they absolutely do. The other is a bet on nerve and structure, that you can survive a rained-out weekend, finance a 6-week income year, and rebuild your show every single season without going broke. Win both, and you own a beloved local institution that prints money for 6 weeks and hums along the rest of the year. Lose the second, bet it all on one perfect October, and the weather alone can take everything you have. So the honest answer is this: a haunted house can absolutely make good money, but almost never as a pure 25-night scare. It works as a year-round destination that happens to peak at Halloween, run by someone who respects the weather, the calendar, and the bank. Do that, and it can terrify and earn for decades. Bet everything on 6 perfect weekends, and you have built the most seasonal trap in business. The thesis close. So look again at what you really bought. Not the screams. Not the fog rolling under a blood-red light. Not the chainsaw revving in the dark. not the teenagers stumbling out laughing and shaking and already begging to go again. That is the show, and the show is only the surface. You bought 1 month of the year, 6 weekends of controlled terror, standing on top of 12 months of rent, insurance, and a build that never really stops. You bought a product with the shortest season in all of business, and the strange, thrilling, dangerous job of manufacturing fear on a deadline, against a sky you cannot control. A haunted house owner is not really selling a scare. They are selling 6 weekends, once a year, and betting a full year of costs that those weekends stay dry. Build a destination, respect the calendar, keep a cushion for the rain, and the screams can pay for decades. Forget that it all rides on a handful of October nights, and the scariest thing in the whole building will turn out to be the weather forecast.